What's up, fellas? What's up, MGTOW? This video is going to be on gentrification as a real estate strategy. While gentrification has a bad connotation attached to it, it's really just a simple market strategy. This strategy can be done without a real estate license and is a good project to take on with a small investment group. Basically, gentrification got a bad name because it was a strategy used by high-income families to move back into inner-city areas, which had been typically occupied by low-income, working-class families. As the cost of transportation rose dramatically over the last few decades, the higher-income families moved closer to their jobs in the cities rather than taking the long commutes from the suburbs. This strategy can be used in a positive way too, as most tools can. If one, or a group, decided to use the gentrification strategy, it could create a large amount of jobs and growth for all involved. First off, you need some capital or investors. If you already have some capital built up, then you're one step ahead. To get investors, one would need to create an investment portfolio with a business plan, and usually you need some type of collateral, which is something you already own, like a car or house. If you already have a lot of capital, ironically, it's much easier to get a loan because you pose less of a risk to the bank or investment group. If you don't have credit, you can look to a private investment group, but you will need to have a good amount of projections for profit to have them look at your plan. Since there are many states in the US with seriously low income and high crime rates, you can find cheap properties in states like Michigan and Minnesota where they sell rundown and abandoned houses for as cheap as $800. The basic idea is for the person or group to find a block or two where almost all the houses are abandoned and buy all or as many of the houses in that area. As always, when buying property, you have to check for zoning and building codes, laws, and taxes, etc. If you can find an area which is relatively unpopulated, that's good. Prices will vary depending on how much public service is available and how far. Things like hospitals, banks, and schools are something to look for. The further you are from these things, the cheaper the properties will be, so you need to take that into account. For a gentrification project, you would also need a small crew of workers to renovate the area, such as carpenters, plumbers, electricians, etc. You will have to allocate some capital to pay your crew. In this type of a project though, you could pay the crew by granting them access to one of the houses they renovate, allowing them to renovate their own house first, and then they could begin to work on the greater area. The more properties you own in the area will give you more power and flexibility. You can also form a homeowners association, which are sets of rules that can be legally imposed on people who live in the neighborhood and own a home. It's up to the group to decide what the rules are, and penalties include things like fines, house liens, or forced forfeiture of the house. Or you can try to work your way into local government and change laws and zoning to allow for more flexibility. So, to summarize, to gentrify a neighborhood, you take these steps. Get money and people together to buy houses. Buy the houses in an area of the country that has many foreclosed or abandoned houses on the same block or neighborhood. Hire a crew of people to renovate the houses and infrastructure. Rebuild the neighborhood. Create a homeowners association to create rules and guidelines for people living in the neighborhood. After you increase the value of the properties, you can either live in that neighborhood or sell the homes and reinvest in another neighborhood. Well, I hope this gives you some ideas, but this is kind of an advanced investment strategy for people that have some capital, but it's just some things you can think about too. And I'll put links in for some of the properties and stuff like that. So, have a good day and go MGTOW.